I feel as though I'm playing less MMOs these days than at any other point in the last decade, and that is not the direct result of a lack of titles to play. On the contrary, there were more releases in the last year alone than I have seen since starting this channel, and admittedly, I have found myself playing games like the new Life is Strange game, Tales of Arise, Sifu, Elden Ring, and my most anticipated games of 2022, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Sea of Stars, Star Ocean The Divine Force, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Honestly, I wish Eiyuden Chronicle was releasing this year, but oh well. In all of this though, Final Fantasy XIV seems to be the one single constant that I find myself regularly coming back to. I have tried playing other MMOs, WoW, Guild Wars 2, Black Desert, Swords of Legends, PSO2 New Genesis, Lost Ark, and although I have put hundreds of hours into most of them, I just feel as though Final Fantasy XIV provides me the most rewarding experience for my time investment. Quick shout out to our patrons over on Patreon. This allows you to directly support us if you're interested. Every patron will have their name appear at the beginning of every single YouTube video, and you'll be immortalized in the MMO genre forever. I started playing Final Fantasy XIV back when Heavensward launched. I played for several patches before moving back to WoW. I came back for 2 patches during Stormblood, and then I stayed with it until Shadowbringers launched. That's roughly when MRSSTIX, my wife, started playing with me, towards the end of Stormblood, not Shadowbringers. We logged in every single day. We leveled all the way from level 1, doing the main scenario quests, unlocking every single optional dungeon, every alliance raid we could, ultimate raids, savage raids, extreme trials, and if I lost you with all of this weird terminology, then in essence, they're progressively more difficult types of endgame PvE content in each respective expansion. Now, I believe I stuck with Shadowbringers for approximately 6 to 7 months straight, and that's when I decided to take a break and move back to WoW, as I was interested in finishing Battle for Azeroth. MRSSTIX, ever since beginning Final Fantasy XIV, has stuck with it, logging in every single day, pushing every savage tier, every ultimate fight. She started with a green parse and now parses purple. And while I find that infinitely impressive, and honestly, I'm beyond proud that she's doing so well and has seen such a drastic improvement in terms of skill, in terms of performance, I, on the other hand, am quite the opposite. I'm average. I'm a complete, utter casual, the kind of player that you'd probably want to avoid for the most competitive forms of content. And that's actually the best part. It doesn't matter that I'm a casual player. It doesn't matter that I don't have the best gear in the game. It doesn't matter that I continue to forget my abilities because I spend half a year away from the game. This game does not punish you for your absence. I can immediately jump back in at any point. I can continue with the story. I can run the most recent dungeons, most recent trials, the most recent extreme trials, 24-player alliance rates. I can literally do everything that I want to. Granted, you know what? I might fail multiple times, but I learn from my mistakes, which is more than I can say about the majority of people that continue to mess up the first boss fight in Orbon Monastery because they'd stand around wondering where the boss went. But I digress. This has never been more evident to me than when MRSSTIX and I decided that we were going to stream our experience in 6.1. Now, I had been out of the game since 5.3. I left after completing 5.3, and then I decided I was going to come back a week before Endwalker to get through all of the content before it launched. And while we ran into exorbitantly high queue times during the launch, as we played on the Gilgamesh server, and there was no way we were going to be transferring off of that server, our experience was incredible. Players everywhere, gorgeous environments, hilarious narrative elements. We saw you-know-who again. It was a dream come true in terms of an expansion, something that I never thought I would ever get to experience again after Wrath of the Lich King. But after finishing, after running everything I could at the time, I decided to step away and focus on slowly playing other games, other MMOs, other non-MMOs. That way, I could, with regards to MMOs, make my way through them and eventually do more dedicated videos on them. So while MRSSTIX continued raiding every week, I did not. Fast forward to 6.1, only a couple months had gone by, but I decided that I wanted to come back every patch and play through them with my wife. That way, I wouldn't be stuck playing catch up at the last minute again. And it was like I never left. I picked up the story from where 6.0 had finished. I started pushing through it. I did the dungeon that accompanied it. I did the 24-player raid. And after everything was said and done, I left once more. That alliance raid, though, my God, that was ridiculous. That was probably one of the most gorgeous yet simultaneously infuriating fights, or series of fights, that I had ever had the pleasure of doing. It took us almost an hour and a half to complete it by the end. We had entire teams repeatedly wiping. Everyone was running around having absolutely no idea what was going on. Players were struggling to learn mechanics with no clue what did what or where we had to stand. It was an absolute, utter, chaotic mess. But at the same time, by far, the most fun that I have had in the game since Orban Monastery. The near raids from Shadowbringers were fun in their own right, but this was absolutely unbelievable. And all I had to do to participate in it, log back in and play the game. Gear you need to be competitive in endgame content, you'll be able to acquire rapidly by just doing the content that's available to you. Having a game actually respect your time is something that I'm not used to, and is definitely something that is not replicated very often within this genre. Stating or claiming that Final Fantasy XIV is the best MMORPG is a contentious opinion that is going to be contested by fans of every other MMO. Guild Wars 2 fans, WoW fans, ESO fans, everyone thinks that their MMO is the best. And at the end of the day, to each respective person, that very well might be the truth. We each have differences of opinions, different likes, and value varied aspects of our games. But in my opinion, Final Fantasy XIV has been the best MMO for years now, and will likely continue to be for the foreseeable future. It's a gorgeous game. Its combat is pretty slow and very limiting until much later in the game, but if you can manage to get over that hurdle, it's significantly better than most of its competition. It has an incredible narrative spanning years worth of story, a stunning world to explore with dynamic events in the form of fates, very difficult PvE content in the form of extreme trials, alliance raids, savage raids, ultimate raids, and things that are there purely to drive you to the very limits of frustration, like Eureka. Oh God, Eureka. Still have PTSD of the weeks, the months that I spent in that place. I love Final Fantasy XIV. It's the MMO that I come back to every year without fail. And I hope one day there are other games in this genre that are capable of offering everything that this game does to make it such an incredible experience.